Good evening and welcome to the first reading of The Wizard and the Leafhopper. This is a story that I wrote about a year ago and I hope you enjoy it. Once upon a time, in a meadow in upstate New England, a band of 87 apprentice wizards had gathered for an indoctrination before starting out on a magical trip to the deep woods. As I sat gathered in a circle listening with an open heart and mind to the beautiful and enchanting Grand Wizard Elena, a leafhopper crawled upon my left hand and settled on the fingernail of my left index finger. I looked at the little insect and he began to speak to me. He asked my name. I told him that I was called Ripple on Calm Water. I asked him his name and he replied, "You can call me Al." This was the beginning of a most amazing and thought-provoking friendship. Al asked what we were doing in the meadow, and I told him that we were going on a magical trip to the deep woods. Upon hearing this, he asked if he might join me on the journey, as he had never been in the woods before. I told him that he was more than welcome to join me, and that if he was uncomfortable at any time, he could just jump off. Al replied, "No, I really want to see the forest." Al, I asked, "How come you chose me?" "Because I saw that you were a fellow that had an open heart and that could be trusted. That is why I chose you." He also told me that if he had not chosen me, that I would never have found him because he was so perfectly camouflaged. I thanked him for picking me. Elena was just wrapping up her talk and asked everyone to keep silent for the duration of the journey. We gathered our belongings and departed into the woods to study and observe the living things that are all around us. We had just started up the path when Al started to speak. There was a tree that had a metal chain wrapped so deeply around it that it had lost all its branches and it had died. Al asked, "Why is this tree not like the others?" I sadly told him that all humankind were not like the wizards, and they could be arrogant and cruel to the other living things that make up our world. He did not seem to get the full drift of what I had said. Well, we continued on down the path when Al noticed Wizard Darlene putting trash into a black garbage bag. He was confused as to her actions. He had said he had never seen anything being put into those black vessels before, but that he had seen humans toss them onto his grass home from moving objects. I explained that Darlene was a great and caring wizard. She was helping Mother Earth by picking up all the trash that some callous and selfish humans deface our land with. He seemed very pleased with the answer and asked that I tell her he was very grateful for her concern. I told him as soon as our silence was lifted that I would tell her that he was grateful. So much for silence. Al would not stop talking. I figured as long as he was not disturbing the rest of the group, that he could talk as much as he pleased. Not long after, as we stood on the path, with Al raised upon my hand so he could look around, a beautiful cobalt blue fly landed on my little pinky finger. I said hello, but he did not respond, and he jumped over to my other fingers, and he landed next to Al. I saw Al tense up when this blue fly started getting into his space, and Al stood up on his back legs. I saw how upset Al was, so I shooed away the fly. Al settled back down and thanked me for protecting him. Well, I told him as long as he traveled with me that I would take care of his security and get him home safely. This made him smile and he relaxed. We continued on our way when Al and I heard the sound of birds chirping and a woodpecker drumming on a tree. This noise frightened Al, and I asked him why. He told me that he had lost a brother and 3 of his sisters to the birds, and they were constantly trying to hide from the birds because they eat them. I assured him again that I would protect him, and he breathed gently. While we walked, we talked about the world around us. I commented on the size of the trees, and Al said that everything was relative, that the size of the trees to me was the same as the size of the tall grass where he lives is to him. While I pondered his intellect, he continued, "Sometimes when I am in the darkness, I have to climb to the very top of the grass to receive the light, and that all things need to climb to the top of the highest point in order to receive the light." I told Al that he was very profound and truly wise. "Point taken," I said. "That's what this trip is all about for me and the other wizards in training." Al had many other questions that he wanted answered, and I was able to help him clear up some of the mystery. Simple things that I used to take for granted, like the babbling brook. Hal said he had never seen such moving water. I explained to him how the water was the source of all life. He mentioned sadly that sometimes his friends would die if they drank from the standing water on the side of the path the moving objects go on. I told him it was common because of where he lived, that mankind uses very heavy concentrations of salt to prevent ice from building up in the months when he is sleeping. It settles in the earth and seeps into the water that kills his friends. It also kills trees and other living things that are in the poison zone. I told him that most of the major waterways in the world were so poisonous that they could not sustain life. He freaked out when he heard this and said if mankind is so unfeeling and stupid as to commit planetary suicide, is there be any hope for survival? I told him there is hope, and that is what the wizards are doing. We are spreading our message, and we are constantly expanding the consciousness of others so that we can all work as one to save ourselves from ourselves before it is too late. We have to also spread the word to the children because they are still pure and have not been affected by the ignorance of their elders. They are the future of the planet. We are making great strides to changes, Al, so tell your kind that all is not lost. Al breathed a sigh of relief, and we stood in silence for quite some time. As we were meditating, a huge wizard walked by, and the earth rumbled under his feet. Al commented on the size of the giant, and he was so huge. Well, I told him that his heart was larger than his body, and the wizard was one of the chosen that can make your heart sing or cry with his prose. Al smiled and nodded that he understood. We continued on the journey, and I sensed that it would be ending soon. When we came into the view of the meadow where Al and I had met, he became very excited and told how happy he was to have been taken on the journey with me. I told him that he was a true friend and the pleasure and respect was mutual. He asked one more thing as we joined the other wizards around the circle. He asked that I share the story of our time together and asked if he could be introduced to the wizards in my band. I said, most certainly, little friend, and as I stood to tell the tale of Al and myself and our trip, all my wizard brothers and sisters applauded the courage of the little fellow. I set him down outside the circle, he jumped into the grass, and with a laugh told me he loved me very much, and he disappeared. Well, that concludes our story, and I hope you enjoyed it. And look for more stories from Ripple on Calm Water. Thank you.